So me and my friends want to make a sort of module for D&D based off of a world that I created in one of our D&D campaigns. The only problem is that we don't exactly have any creative chops when it comes to animation, music, or anything fancy like that to give us any notoriety. So what I've decided to do at this point is to just stop trying to explain our world that hardly anyone's going to see and do what our YouTube videos have been more successful in doing. For example, I want to tell you guys about how I killed one of my party members, and it was the best thing I've ever done in a while. Okay, so to be clear, I'm not trying to say that killing your party is a absolutely good idea. I don't think I'm quite qualified to start talking about the whole aspect of killing your party and how it's a good idea, this, that, and the other. But I still want to talk about that one moment where I actually did straight up kill one of my players, and it was the best thing that everyone at the table experienced. For context, I'm running a homebrew campaign where the idea is that the party hunts dragons for the most part, a la Monster Hunter or whatever. The idea was that they had to first level up to become stronger, more capable, so that they can be trusted with their license and then go out and hunt dragons. Well, they did their menial missions. They got their license after getting taken once or twice. And then eventually they finally managed to come get their first dragon hunting mission. The mission was that they had to hunt a blue dragon that was causing up dust storms near one of the villages. They go to the village, get jumped by a single goblin because goblins were using the dust storms to help raid any passerbys. But it was no big deal. It wasn't that much of a challenge. And they finally got to the village with very little problems. They talked to the villagers and they are very confident that these party members will be able to deal with the problem because they were associated with the dragon hunting guild. So after they got the information, they set out to go hunt the dragon. This is not where they die, to be clear. What happened is that they fought the dragon. It was only 3 members at that point. They were fighting the dragon, and this dragon had something unique about it. It was covered in these mushrooms that seemed to be manipulating its mind to do its bidding, the mushrooms bidding. But the players went in and started fighting the dragon. It created dust storms. It shot lightning breath at them. The players were attacking the dragon. The dragon was hitting them back. The druid was tanking the damage. Barbarian was tanking the damage. The ranger was kind of dealing damage. But ultimately, the barbarian and the ranger were hit to 0 hit points, and they were rolling death saving throws. This left the druid to fend off for themselves, and he was doing a really good job of standing toe-to-toe with the dragon. But after a certain point, his wild form lost all of its HP, and it was just mono and mono, dragon versus base form druid. He never went back into a wild form because he wanted to use more damaging spells that he had, or whatever the idea was. However, the dragon bested him, dropping him to 0 hit points, and it was by 1 HP that the dragon survived. This upset the druid on a character level, but I allowed everyone else to still make their death saving throws. Everyone managed to do it, but when they woke up, they found that all of them were covered in the same mushrooms the dragon was covered in. The next session comes and the players go back to the village to try and heal, but no one in the village can help them remove the mushrooms without a form of magic that the village did not have. One of the other players managed to make it to this session, and being a fire lizard, they asked, "Could I eat the mushroom off one of the players?" I had them roll medicine checks to see if that would be a good idea, and they rolled too low to determine whether or not it would be a good idea. So the player goes ahead and eats the mushrooms off of one of the players, and it kills the player straight up. The way I ruled it was that the mushrooms were so tied to the body of the person that forcibly removing them would just end up killing them. Thankfully, one of the players was managed to find a unique way to get the mushrooms off of them using necrotic damage, but they didn't have enough spell slots and it was too late. The mushrooms were eaten and the player ended up dying. The players, of course, wanted to bring the dead ranger, the one who died, back to life, trying to think of who could possibly have resurrection spells on hand. Unfortunately, the only real resurrection spells that anyone could get were the druids. There were no clerics nearby or anything like that. And the only resurrection spell was True Resurrection and Reincarnation. So it wasn't entirely hopeless. But I was a bit hesitant to tell them these things. I still told them. But I felt like there was something that needed... Like, I felt like the players should stay dead for at least a little longer, if not just long enough for the players to find some kind of mission that would allow them to go on this adventure to find this method of revitalizing their fallen comrade. And when I solidified the idea of like, okay, this person is dead, they all kind of just started laughing because of the situation that they were in. The player character that ended up dying had another player who was their brother, and that guy plays his characters with vengeance in his heart at every point. So they were laughing at the idea that now that his sister is dead, they were all going to be killed by the brother, and they could not let him find out whatsoever. It was so funny to watch them try and comprehend the fact that they're now all doomed, and the BBG was this character. Not confirmed yet, it's just a funny thing. There was another reason why I felt like bringing the player character back to life wasn't the best idea, because I wanted to teach them something. Prior to the dragon hunting fight, both the barbarian and the ranger had notably did not use or were conscious of certain abilities. Like the ranger didn't add the extra damage because they were because of the ranger ability. The barbarian didn't use advantage when rolling dexterity saving throws. And what's more, what I wanted to teach the players in this moment with the whole eating of the mushrooms was that your decisions do have consequences. Not just in like every bad thing you do will immediately come back to bite you in the butt. But once certain things, once they're done, either cannot be reverted or they cannot be easily reverted. I think another thing too that I wanted was that I wanted to play a situation that had heavy consequences, to really let it sink in that this is something that was done, and the way to reverse it, if you can reverse it, is a heavy cost. Ultimately, I feel like it was a really good decision for this group. Not just to teach them a lesson, but because they got a lot of emotional and hilarious events out of it that would not be as impactful if the player character was brought back to life. So I guess by the end of all of this, I think it's a really good idea that killing your players within reason is a good idea, especially when it's through their decisions and not necessarily something that you have decreed to be, you know, you've decreed that they should die. Um, and it also helps that it was outside of a combat encounter because when you're in a combat encounter, you prepare yourself for death. But when you're in a more social, safe place and someone dies, that is something entirely different.